Tom, we're going to touch on a couple of different things here. I guess I'll start. I know you did not hear, Brian told you did not hear Francois Legault today being asked what to do about the encampment at McGill.
Well, I just heard the clips on the news, so I'm not too bad.
Okay. So, well, here's just a shortened version of what actually went down.
It's clear that they don't want these encampments, and I think that I rely on the officers to make sure to stop that.
Police officers?
Police officers.
What are you asking police to do?
To dismantle encampments.
Right now?
At the time that they will judge that will be the right one.
He seemed like he was taking a test there for just a second, didn't he? So he's saying that if McGill has asked that these people be removed, then the police should go ahead and do it. So first of all, we know that thankfully nothing happened today, despite the fact there were two counter protests, if you will. Things seem to have quietened down. What should happen next?
I think that the Premier is entirely right. It's the university's property. This has been going on for almost a week now, and they've been allowed to make the point. That's, the expression of freedom of expression in our society. That's all good. But at some point, the university's got to get back to the business of being a university. There are several major conferences planned at McGill this summer, the large national assizes in the social sciences and political science. These are things that are not going to be possible to hold with an encampment right there. And Legault is right. The university's asked it to be removed. The police will decide their own timing. They have to be careful. They want to protect their officers, but it's going to be dismantled. And I think that in the grand scheme of things, that's probably the way it's going to come down in the next very short while.
Okay, well, as I said, police in much greater numbers there today, Tom, but that's, as I said, because of the counter-protests that were going on. Thankfully, nothing has changed, and I think last we spoke to Olivia O'Malley, the numbers seem to have gone down as well, so keep our fingers crossed and hope that this can, in fact, end peacefully without people being arrested, but we'll see. It doesn't look like the folks there in the encampment are in any rush to leave, regardless of what McGill is asking, so fingers crossed.
It'll be interesting to see how many of them are actually from McGill or have any connection to McGill.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling that the ones that might be thinning the ranks right now are probably the ones who are looking at the rest of their school career and the rest of their career period and saying, okay, we've done our job here, we've made our point, and now it's time to move on.
All right, listen, we spoke to a CTV Ottawa reporter earlier today, kind of followed from yesterday's Pierre Poilievre get out of my house routine. Nothing changed that he did it. Nobody apologized. Everything seems to have gone back to normal, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not convinced of that. I actually think we're probably going to be looking at a motion, I would say next week, from the Conservatives. They know that they've got the support of the Bloc Québécois right now. The big question is this: is Jagmeet Singh going to once again back Justin Trudeau's Liberals, or is he going to say no? It's quite obvious that Greg Fergus cannot continue on as Speaker of the House of Commons, because it's quite obvious that Greg Fergus cannot continue with any credibility and any authority to be the Speaker of the House of Commons. It's our most important legislative body federally. It's the backbone of our democratic institutions. The Speaker plays an extraordinarily important role. Mr. Fergus is, in my view, disqualified from continuing. He was clearly one-sided in his approach to this, going only after Mr. Poilievre and not after Trudeau, who had been name-calling before. The way he did it, it's not to give you my CV, but I've been at this for a long time, and I went through a lot of really tough debates in Quebec City and in Ottawa, but I've never seen such one-sidedness from any speaker in any of those parliaments or legislatures, and I think that Mr. Fergus is not going to leave on his own, so he's going to have to be booted out, and I believe he will be.
So this would have to bring a motion, and there'd have to be a vote, and...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And do you imagine that the NDP would support a vote like that?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm not sure that Singh's going to be able to impose a whip on this thing. In other words, it's up to every individual member looking at their prerogatives as members of the House of Commons to decide whether they feel comfortable with somebody there. This time he was biased against the Conservatives, but next time, why wouldn't he be biased? If there's a tough debate, why wouldn't he be biased against the NDP? If you're not capable of doing that job fairly and treating everybody equitably, then you're going to have to find somebody who can do it properly.
Everything is political now whenever something like this happens. And I know I played that clip yesterday of the Liberals putting out, Donald Trump, a mix of him going wacko, 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 wacko to kind of tie him into Pierre Poilievre. And the Conservatives have sort of done the same on there. And who wins here? Who gets the most out of what happened here?
Well, the Liberals were hoping that this would move the needle in their favor. It doesn't seem to have moved any single voter away from Poilievre. Although if you dig deep into the Leger poll that was just done for the National Post, there's something in there. There's always a little bit of possibility of movement from one to the other, and people express that. And if you dig down in the reasons that they give, the people who are right now saying, I'm voting for Poilievre, and then they ask, well, what would be one of the reasons why you might consider not voting for him? And the answer basically comes back, the behavior of Poilievre. So that's why he was so careful in the House. So this all went down on Tuesday. Yesterday, Poilievre, he was so careful in his tone and his approach because he knows that he's already got his Conservative voters with him. There are a lot of people who have said, we prefer you for what you're saying economically. We think that Trudeau's done a terrible job, and we're going to tell pollsters, and we plan to vote for you. But you better show us that you're capable of being the Prime Minister of all Canadians. That name-calling is what we tell our kids not to do in school. So you're going to, there's nothing edifying about what happened. It was rough, but there was nothing great about it. And I think that Poilievre took that lesson to heart. He's got some really smart people around him, and they said, hey, boss, you got this thing, and the only person who can lose it right now is you. And so I think he's going to smarten up.
Do you really think that's likely to I mean, I understand that. It makes sense. I mean, logically, yes. You have to start acting more prime ministerial, if you will. It seems that every opportunity up until, it's not the first time we've said this, he tends to fall back on what he knows, what he's most comfortable with. You really think there can be a change?
There has to be. Well, there have been some cosmetic changes, and in fact, lots of them.
Well, wearing a T-shirt is not exactly a cosmetic change instead of wearing, a shirt and tie.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, having his hair with less greasy kid stuff in it and getting rid of the glasses and trying to use, when he came to Quebec City for their September conference, it was a very neutral tone. He left the fire and brimstone to other people. So he's learning how to have different tones, because if you only have one pitch and it's a hard ball to the head, it's easy for everybody to step back from the plate. So people are going to watch Poilievre now and say, okay, show us that we're right to believe that you can do better than Trudeau. And that's why he's 21 points ahead. Most people think he can do better than Trudeau, but that's not a permanent thing. If they get to the point where they say, you know what, there are parts of this guy that I just can't deal with, then his numbers could start falling.
Let me shift to provincial politics while we have a second here. We all know Quebec Solidaire's had a tough week. I asked Jim Many earlier on if maybe the biggest hurdle for Quebec Solidaire now to be taken seriously is Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who's taken his knocks this week. What do you think?
Well, you're talking to a guy who has a great deal of empathy for Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois for having taken the NDP at one point and said, well, let's try to professionalize this outfit and make ourselves more appealing, to a large number of Canadians, not just to our hard-bitten base. And so it's a tough sell. And he's being courageous about it. He's also being very transparent about it. He's saying to his folks, look, we've really come a long way from 1 and then 2 and then 4. And then all of a sudden, they've got official party status now. They've got 10 MNAs. And he's saying, we've got some great people. We can aspire to forming a government, but we've got to convince Quebecers that we reflect them. And we can't be on the fringe on most files and expect a plurality of Quebec voters to follow us. So it's a mature approach. He's being honest, but I'm not sure we're not going to see a schism within Quebec Solidaire where the more fringe types, radical types say, no, this is not what we signed on for. We're not going to let you have that authority to pull us towards the center.
Tom, one last thing. I'm going to replay an interview I did early in the show today with a Liberal MP named Pam DeMoff, who has decided she's calling it quits. So she was in the riding of Oakville, North Burlington. Here we go, yet again, another politician. She's been in this game for more than 10 years, walking away. And I'm wondering, we've talked about this before, and the situation doesn't seem to be getting any better.
Well, I have to tell you, I know Pam DeMoff. I attended a major conference with her. She represents, for me, the absolute epitome of what you want in public life. A good person, works hard for her riding, respectful of others, does very well in her legislative work in the House of Commons, respected across the board. And she's packing it in, citing in particular, the attitude towards women.
Yeah.
And it's something that you and I have talked about at the municipal level in the province of Quebec, where something close to 25% of the people who were elected 2.5 years ago have said, I can't continue with this nonsense. It's madness. So I think Not enough to just say we've got to have an examination of conscience. We've got to be careful and protect and cherish our democratic institutions and protect the people who are elected. And we're not doing a very good job of it so far.